Yeah.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm Johanna, and Andrew is here with me today. I reeled him in for another month. If you haven't met with Andrew, he's joined the customer success team previously, who is working with our sales team. And so he's come over to our side of the fence here to help everyone out. So if you get an email from him, you can respond. He's
Please do.
trying, please do. He's trying to
Yeah.
help you out. But we're doing these office hours. If this is your first time joining us, we do have like the chat up, so we can kind of see, if you want to post a comment and engage with us. We call it office hours for a reason, right? This is not just a we're talking to ourselves webinar where we don't want you to engage with us. We want your engagement. We want to hear from you. What can we do to help you? What can we do to give you pointers while we're here? Today, we're talking about, the kind of automating this follow-up and reducing no-shows and reducing, tickets just sitting out there and going stale. And I say moldy, when you lose it in the back of the fridge and then you find it, it's a science experiment. That's what tickets do if you don't have some of these things put in play. And that became a real pet peeve of mine when I was working for a PSA. And now that I'm on the TimeZest side, I get to actually empower people and give you some little tips and tricks to reduce that. So we have this recorded just to kind of do some housekeeping. So we try to do them the last Wednesday of every month. They are announced on LinkedIn by our wonderful marketing manager, Alan, who's in the background making magic happen for us. And then they are posted on YouTube afterwards. So you can always go to YouTube and see previous webinars and share them with your team. Okay. And there's also other recordings there of different trainings and things like that. So you might find some nuggets. It's not just webinar recordings. So, Andrew, let's dive in here. I have a PowerPoint, to fuel my A-type personality. And then I also have a share screen of our appointment type in our demo instance to share with you guys a little bit later, so you can just see visually. And then we've left time at the end of the call to have you guys ask questions. So you can put those in the comments and I'll get to them, as we go through. But again, we're talking about reducing, these tickets going stale as well as no shows. Okay. And so there's also actually a great blog out there about this on the TimeZest blog. If you haven't checked out the blog on our website, there's some great thought leadership going on there. So I highly encourage taking a look at that. But we have this anatomy of a ghost, right? So we have your ticket gets submitted. We all know they come in with the highest need, the most urgency. Their world is on fire. Everyone needs to respond yesterday. And then when you go to try to respond, they're gone, right? Or it is something that actually maybe doesn't have a high priority level that is actually getting the faster response. Right? Maybe, it depends on your client's personality. We are dealing with humans here. So, and then your technician, right? We see this a lot of time. They either call and they can't get a hold of the customer, or they call and it's not a good time for the customer, right? This is why y'all brought TimeZest in the first place, to reduce this ping ponging, however you want to call it, ticket tennis. There's a few phrases out there. But then you could send them a TimeZest request, right? So we've already brought this on. That's part of your process, hopefully. And it just sits there, right? So maybe they open it and then they don't do anything because they're like, oh, I need to go look at my calendar. I need to figure out what's going on Tuesday with Mary. Like, they have things going on and then they forget about it. Okay. I do the same thing. I look at an email, I draft it out, and then I forget to push send. I don't know why it happens. Okay. But then it just sits there and ages, right? So in the background, they're not thinking about your SLAs most of the time. They're not thinking about your workload. They're thinking about their own workload, right? Humans are kind of selfish in that they're usually thinking about their own needs, their own priorities. And so they don't care that it's sitting out there on your to-do list, with the clock burning. Okay. So that's what we want to talk about today. And then Andrew, feel free to pipe in. Yeah, I know you have a lot of valuable insights on this.
Yeah, I mean, meeting with MSPs in the past, like a lot of things come up. The question of our current customers are dentists or lawyers or teachers and people who, when they have an issue, submit a ticket, but they have to get back to work immediately, and they can't
Yep.
just be right at their computer or right at their cell phone for an email. They have to get back to work. So I think today this is an important way of when we speak about kind of how the process of a ticket goes. Think about your current customers that you have and how they, when they submit a ticket or when a day or multiple hours go by and they haven't responded, put yourself in their shoes and see how it could impact that ticket length if you were to have reminders, if you had all these different tools that we're going to provide you today, and how it can help you every single day when those tickets are aging.
Yeah. A lot of this, it is really, I get asked a lot, what's best practice, right? So we try to give you some guidelines, but you really do need to, think about what is best for your customer base, like Andrew said. What are their needs? It was a great example, Andrew, with lawyers and teachers, right? So they can maybe send it out real quick, but they're not going to be able to come back to it for a while. Um, Also thinking about your processes. So while you're making these customizations to your appointment types, really keep that in mind. If our best practice doesn't fit within that template that you need for your business and for your clients, adjust it, right? Um, but also kind of keep in mind, giving them enough time is kind of the key thing here. Sometimes I see people be a little too aggressive, and sometimes not aggressive enough, right? So we're trying to find this balance here.
Perfect
Um,
fiddle.
yeah, the perfect, Goldilocks here. Okay.
Yeah.
So if I could template it out and it worked for everybody, 100% of the time, it would be done. But that's why we leave it blank for you to do it. We just kind of guide you. Okay, so the most common culprits that I've kind of seen over the years is reminder timing is too slow or missing entirely. And this can actually be the reverse as well. It can be too fast, right? I've seen, okay, 1 hour later, they send them a reminder. Okay, and then 4 hours later, they're closing out the ticket or putting it into no response. That's depending on your clientele, if that was a teacher, that's way too aggressive. They're they're not even out of class yet to be able to address it, right? So that's where having that insight and that intuition about your customers and knowledge about them comes into play. Um, so, but also keeping this, having multiple reminders, not just one that goes out. Now, by default, TimeZest does have one reminder set up in your appointment types. So if you never touched this, there's one and it goes off at 24 hours. Okay. But as a best practice, I do recommend always having two. Now, in the classic configuration of your appointment types, there is only two that you can put in there. When you convert to workflow mode, you can put in as many as you want. And we're going to look at that today a little bit and kind of give you an idea of what that might look like. Um, but having two is really important. And I've seen that affect what we call the completion rate, which is the customer has opened the invitation and they have scheduled it, right? So as you have two on all appointment types, that completion rate increases. And that is the goal here. Okay. Um, no response action is not configured. Okay, so this is important. This is where it's going to update the ticket status to a no response ticket status. And if you've ever had training from us, we do recommend having separate statuses for TimeZest generally, because that way we don't have any um, noise that comes through with ticket statuses that might have automation in your PSA that are emailing out at the same time as TimeZest. And we like to have all those emails coming from TimeZest, these reminders, because every email has the action item right in it, has the button for them to schedule, right? They're not having to go back and find the very first email, and then all the other ones are coming from the PSA without the actionable item in it, right? Um, yeah, you have any I saw Andrew, you have something there?
Yeah, no, I was going to mention. So one thing with Don that's used to be in these meetings, I've been taking over for him lately. He would always say is that the MSP that he worked at, they would have their no response triggered there, so they knew that they needed to take an action. May it be followed by a phone call, or if they needed to close the ticket, but maybe do one more manual touch before closing out that ticket. So it's also a great way for you to say, hey, let's have TimeZest take care of these follow ups, take care of these reminders. But once that no response hits, just so we're doing our due diligence, you can follow up one more time with your customer, letting them know that this ticket will be closed. And these are all things that you can automate in your PSA as well as in TimeZest. So it's just a great way of being able to not only keep yourself accountable, but your customers accountable as well, making sure that they know that the ticket will be closed after this allotted amount of time and times you've reached out.
Yeah, absolutely. I usually see, two ways of this being handled. One is where it goes back to the technician or back to the dispatcher to take those manual actions and review the ticket to see if it's still needed, right? Or it goes into, like a pending closure type status where maybe your PSA does one more reach out, and says, "Hey, we're starting the clock to closing your ticket. Please let us know if it's still needed," right? So it just depends on your processes, what works best for your clientele and your team. But yeah, those are kind of two ways to look at it, as making sure that you're, like Andrew said, doing your due diligence to make sure that you're following up with people. Um, the scheduling window is too narrow. So this is how far out in the future they can see availability, right? So we have the minimum notice, which is how soon they can schedule. But if you're not giving them ample time in the future to schedule, then it might be really making it so they can't get in when they actually have the time, and they might have to close it out and come back to it later. So that might be something to evaluate is what kind of availability is it showing? Send yourself a test ticket, try it out, see what's producing. Another part of this is looking at team scheduling, right? So with our team scheduling, you can use maximum availability and provide multiple resources availability, which might give you more options as well. So looking at how these things can kind of work together to provide optimized availability. Okay.
Yeah, and I would say
Um,
also what I do often is weekly or even daily, I'll generate that URL and then I'll check what my availability is. Because if we're doing what would be panel scheduling, and I know that I need to have multiple people in a call, or I know that I'm busy this week, I just check and see what my availability is, see if I need to make any openings or if I need to, like you said, spread out those scheduling windows just to be able to provide availability to your end user. May that be through the panel, team scheduling, or just your own scheduling as well.
right. Yeah. It's the shareable URLs, nothing is preventing you from opening that up and looking at your availability, and making adjustments as needed, if you have the permissions to do so, right? Um, so the other one here is my audio going out? No?
No, I think
We're
it's just
good?
a little delayed, but I think
I
you're
saw
good.
some
Yeah.
glitches.
No, you're good.
We were just talking before we started, everyone. there is some drama with Joe's internet over the years, and I'm finally getting fiber on fiber. I am so excited. I live out in the middle of nowhere. It is taking me 6 years to get fiber internet, okay? It's been a long process. I'm so excited. But anyways, I
Next
digress.
webinar, it'll be just perfect.
I can't wait, you guys. I can't wait. Uh, it's a real struggle. So generate URL instead of using the sending scheduling request. This is something else I'm running into a little more frequently. So within the pod or insight or tab, whatever it's called for your PSA, there is the generate URL button. It is a great feature. It is very flexible. You can just copy it and you can put it into an email you're already sending when you have a bunch of details that you need to provide to the customer. The problem with it that I want you to keep in mind and really talk to your customers with is it should not be the standard, in my experience. Um, One, it does not kick off the automation of your reminders and no response status. Okay. And I think people kind of miss that. It's in the training documentation on how to use the pod, but I know not everybody reads those things. It does not kick off this follow up, right? And if you're not kicking off the follow up, what's following up with the customer? Humans, right? And if they don't know they need to follow up with the customer, then it's just sitting there and it's just waiting, right? And if it is being followed up with humans, there's this wonderful thing called human error and oversight, and things get delayed, right? So if we can automate these tasks, that's taking more off your team's plate to focus on higher priority things. So I do recommend as the standard to use the like ask client to schedule button or send scheduling a request. I think we changed the naming on that. It's embedded in my brain as one thing. And so that will kick off these reminder emails. That'll start the timer for the no response status and keep the follow up consistent, right? So those are mine. Kind of most common culprits to these tickets just sitting out there and aging. Andrew, do you have anything on that or any additional ones maybe I didn't think about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you bring him on later, but it's the reminders of upcoming appointments as well.
Yeah.
That we can make sure that through our set up inside of the tickets, we can send, an hour, multiple hours or minutes before a meeting. We can send
Yeah.
your end user a reminder of that, which, like I said, I know you'll be probably touching on here
Yeah.
shortly. But that was always the best for me. When we had demos for showing TimeZest, everyone would
Mhm.
say, "Oh man, it was like I got that reminder about an hour ago, and if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have made it." So
Yeah.
firsthand, I've met with MSPs who that was one of the main reasons why they showed up for their meeting, and also they were like, "Oh, is that what's going to look like, or what's different?" So you have a great way of being able to have that conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. So things that I think that people actually misunderstand what the reminders are in the appointment type. Sometimes they think it is a reminder of the meeting. And so I just wanted to clarify with people that the reminders you see under additional options is actually the reminders to schedule the appointment. These are going to the customer, reminding them that they need to schedule their appointment. Meeting reminders of like a scheduled meeting are not in the classic configuration. Okay. We kind of counted on Outlook or whatever alarms you could have in your inbox to remind you have a meeting coming up in 15 minutes, right? But then we saw a need to kind of expand that. And as we came out with our workflow mode in our appointment type several years ago, we put together a tutorial to walk you through creating this step. And so we are going to go in that. Now, you'll see some QR codes in the slides here. And this is my way to get you to go to the help center. Okay. We have spent 6 years putting a lot of articles in there. And I always say anything I've repeated over the years is probably in a document. And so I wanted to give you guys some documentation to go through and read, and some of them have videos in there. Um, and so scan ones that, go through and look at them to get more information. This one right here is the life cycle of the scheduling request, which is where I talk about taking your preset statuses, which are the ticket statuses that we're going to use throughout this life cycle of a scheduling request, your reminders to the customer that they need to schedule, and that no response status and timing. So it takes all three features and puts them into one document for you to kind of understand how they all work together. Okay. So the reminders in your appointment type are reminders to the customer that they need to schedule their meeting. These do calculate off of when the first invite is sent, right? So you want to stagger them. You want one at, say, 24 hours, and then the next one you would put at 48 hours, not 24, then 24. Okay? So there's just some understanding of how they work. Um, so the timing of these is important, right? So we were talking about that, what fits your needs. Now, if I were to give you a cookie cutter template, I would say 24 hours and then probably 48 hours. And then we would set your no response um, timing at, day 3 or day 4. This no response timing is actually counting, and these reminders are counting calendar days, not business days. So giving a little more time is better than really tightening it down too much, especially if you're going to be sending them on Friday. You want to give a little bit of leeway there. Okay. And then the frequency, I mentioned this earlier. We recommend 2 reminders at a minimum for each appointment type, and that is what is available in the classic configuration. One is a default, but go in there and add a second, and you will see that completion rate come up. Okay. And then we do have our default templates that are in there, right? So we have all these default email templates that you can use, but that does not stop you from going in and creating your own. And feel free, you can actually start off with the default. You can select to copy a default and then edit it to suit your needs. And you can go in there and have maybe different emails. So they're not getting the same one over and over again. You could have a second reminder and a final reminder. So feel free to go in and create these custom email templates that have different tones and different, messaging to kind of pull their attention, right? We know nowadays people's attention span is like goldfish, right? Just super fast and then they're gone, right? So we gotta reel them in somehow. So try that. If you're using the default for all of them, maybe try putting a custom one in there. And I do recommend doing a template that you can apply so you can reuse it in multiple appointment types. And that way it's just kind of there, right? Anything there, Andrew?
Yeah, no, I think I love how customizable those email templates are,
Mhm.
especially for all the different uses. As you once set up TimeZest, we try to make a lot of the initial steps really easy for you and just cookie cutter. But then everyone has different needs, and you can go in there and update for a request sent, for cancellations, for reminders. All of these things can be fully customizable. And like Joe said, the first couple can be just a helpful reminder, excuse me, and then the final one can be a little more urgent. Also, when the um, when they schedule a time and they get their confirmation, you can add buttons on there for joining online meetings and different things. So
Mhm.
there's so much that you can play around with it, and that's what we're here for as well. If you jump in there and it seems like you might need some help, there's a helpful article definitely on it, but we're more than happy to jump on with you and walk you through it as well. And I'll say again, I use those articles daily still. I share them daily. So definitely make sure that you check our help articles and are using those as well.
Yeah, the team is here to help you. We want to give you the resources that you don't feel pressured to need us. That's why we have the AI bot in the bottom right hand corner. So you don't feel that you need to schedule time with us if you don't want to. But our team is here, and we do want to encourage you to engage with us. If you would like a working session to go through something specific, we're more than happy to schedule time. You would just click into that yellow chat bot in the bottom right hand corner. That goes to support if you ask for a human, and you can just say, "Hey, I'd like to schedule time with a customer success, um, you know, person to go through this," and we'll give you a link to schedule time with us. Okay. So we're here to help. I could not express that enough. That's uh, extremely important to all of us on the team. Okay. So the no response timing, we touched on this a little bit, but this is what really defines what happens if the customer never books the appointment, right? So we want to say, okay, and you can use a lot of your customization in your PSA to add more powerful automation to this to have it happen exactly how you need it to. We're just going to flip the status, right? We're just going to say, oh, they haven't responded. They haven't scheduled. It's been 4 days. You get to control in your PSA and use the power of their workflows and automation to um, take this to the next level and go back into your processes, right? So whether you're closing the request, I don't recommend just like cold closing it. I do recommend at least sending one more email or having one more human touch to reach out, whether that's your dispatcher or technician. But yeah, saying, okay, we've been trying to reach you, and by this point, TimeZest has sent 3 touches, right? We've sent 3 emails. And so you can feel confident in saying, okay, do we have the right email address? Do we have, what's going on here, right? You can use your PSA to notify the technician as well, saying, hey, this needs follow up, or escalate, like I said, to your dispatcher, right? Um, and so using that no response timing and being really intentional about it, you really want to give them enough time to schedule, but you don't want it sitting out there forever. Now, obviously, this is all dependent on what kind of appointment type you're scheduling and what team you're scheduling with as well, right? So a QBR is going to have a lot different needs than your remote support, break fix kind of session. So keep that in mind, try to be really mindful when you're going through and creating your appointment types that you are remembering what you're setting up, not just going in and setting everything the same, because not every appointment type has the same needs. And so, an on-site appointment type, your minimum notice isn't going to be 30 minutes, right? So you're going to want to be really intentional that maybe that's a business day or 2 business days. Same with your QBRs. It might be, 5 business days is the very minimum. It might be 30 days is the minimum, right? So um, keeping that in mind with your no response timing is pertinent as well. Okay. All
And one
right.
thing I always like to remind people is don't forget you can duplicate your appointments and then change the things that you need to change on there. Like how it's set up, or you can even have, one in manual and one in workflow. So then you can also just be able to check out the workflow mode, but you still keep your appointment type and then go in and change all the different things. So I always think it's a helpful reminder to let you know that you can duplicate your appointments and be able to just play around with them, change things up, and see how they're working in either manual workflow or different durations.
Yeah, you don't have to start from scratch every time. You can kind of make yourself a little template and, copy them over as you create new ones and just tweak them. Absolutely. Great tip, Andrew. Okay, so Andrew brought this up earlier. Appointment reminders. Now we've knocked on their door multiple times and they have scheduled their meeting, and now we're going to set up the automation to remind them to show up to their meeting, right? So no shows are a thing, I think, in everyone's work life here. I get a couple a week, but it's something that you can help mitigate. And this really made a huge impact when I put this on all of my appointment types. I saw that I do not get quite as many. I mean, I would get a no show every day, and now maybe one or two a week. So it really does make an impact. And I challenge you to kind of keep an eye on that, and see how is this impacting it. But you do need to create a custom email template. You can start from using, the reminder template that we have that's a default, and then just change the verbiage. You do want it to be so when you're making email templates. Let me see here. Maybe I can pop on over and show you what I'm talking about. When you make email templates, there are types that you need to select so that TimeZest will route it to the correct workflow action. And so that's something that I just would want to kind of guide you on. So let me see if I can share my screen and I can show you what I'm talking about here. Let's do this. Remove one, add to stage. Voila. Okay.
Ta-da.
Ta-da! One of these days I'll figure it out, right? Okay. So I'm gonna make it larger here for a second. So what I've done is I've gone over here to email settings, and then you have email templates up here. And then I went to create new template, and you'll see these types. This is important to pay attention to, okay? Because this tells it where to make it available in the actions. And so when you make this reminder template, even though it's not a reminder to schedule, it is a reminder that they have, that they've already scheduled and just need to show up, you still need to use this reminder template. Okay. So there is a little tip for you. And then you can just go in and adjust the verbiage and the settings to be like, this is a reminder of your upcoming meeting. Okay. All right, let's go back here. Okay, so things also to keep in mind is that you can put in there's the smart tokens, right? So you can go in and you can put in, the customer's name, the technician's name, all these different things. So you can also have ones that are specific for certain appointment types where maybe you need to include a link to upload information or go fill out a certain survey or form. You can embed that in those custom email templates, right? Reminder, you need to go in and fill out this information before our meeting. You can embed those buttons and links into those reminder templates. I've also seen, embedding a link to directions, how to get to the shop, right? If they need to come to you for some reason. So there's a lot of flexibility that can be done with these custom email templates. Look into it and see how that'll work for you. Okay. And then let's go here. Rescheduling and cancellation settings, right? So I just wanted to touch on this. Making sure that your minimum notice is in there, and that it is specific to the type of meeting that you're actually scheduling. And your allow rescheduling, you also have the parameters there. So a couple of years ago, we did rescheduling parameters or minimum notice. And what that is that's how close to the meeting can they actually reschedule or cancel their appointment. And that became really important. We started knowing specifically for on-site appointments. You don't want to be rolling trucks and you're almost there and all of a sudden it disappears off your calendar, right? You want some communication there. So using that, putting in there a phone number maybe, or a direct email that they can reach out to. There's a custom that you can do, is a good tip to make sure that they can actually accurately communicate with you if they do need to cancel, right? And then the cancellation behavior, if they cancel, the ticket status is going to flip to, should be like a TimeZest appointment cancel type status. Again, leverage the PSA to notify the technician, to pull in the dispatcher, to review that ticket. Don't have it just auto close, because we do give your customer a pop up box asking why they're canceling the meeting. And that information gets pushed through to the ticket. So you do want to review what's going on there. Anything on your side, Andrew?
Yeah, I think that cancellation behavior is really important, even if it's
Mhm.
on the customer side, but even if it's on the dispatcher or technician side by using Calendar HQ. So when you need to cancel, reassign, or reschedule an appointment, if you do that inside of Calendar HQ, it's going to then update the appointment, update the ticket, all this information that this is what TimeZest is created for. We want to limit the amount of clicks and manual time that it takes to do all of these things. And we find that, the average lifetime of a ticket can, multiply exponentially if a cancellation or if a rescheduling or reassigning or cancellation needs to take place. And TimeZest can help limit that. And then it's also on the customer's end, teach them to be able to, when they need to cancel or reschedule, when they get those reminders or even the confirmation in their email, tell them to cancel and reschedule from there, so they're not calling in, sending emails, and then when that occurs, it's all being updated inside of the PSA, and that's what we want to happen.
Absolutely. I have seen some MSPs be scared to turn this on because they don't want the customer to be able to cancel or reschedule things. They want them just to feel locked in. And I think there's a real downside to that, because if they need to cancel or reschedule, they're going to do it anyway, or they're just not going to know so. So I think giving them the ability to, change the appointment and communicate their need to have flexibility and changes made, um, actually gives you, is a benefit. It's not them, being flimsy on you, however you want to put it. Okay.
Yeah,
So don't be
and
afraid of it. It's a power tool.
And I think TimeZest is also a tool that benefits you as the MSP, but is also a customer success product. The end user wants
Absolutely.
to have that ability to cancel and reschedule and to feel like their times are being heard by them scheduling. So it's also a tool that you shouldn't view as only the MSP is getting the benefit of not having to do all these manual things, but the customer being able to have their say while respecting your technicians and your MSP's time.
Absolutely. Yeah, the customer experience is one of our primary goals, right? When we are setting up all of these, the timing, it's keeping your customer's experience at top of mind at all times. And we have some blogs on that. We've done webinars about it. So there's some material out there. I Andrew's smiling because he's sat in the meetings with me, and I am like the parade candy lady with the documentation and the articles. I'm like, take it all. Okay, so there at the top right hand corner, that links to the rescheduling and cancellation document, so you can read more about this feature if you have not set it up yet. Okay. Um, so I wanted to also show you, I guess I could stop clicking here. Let me go back to, let's see, we're going to share here a minute, and I'm going to have us disappear so you can get a full screen here. This is a appointment type that is in our workflow mode. And how you get to that is going to the additional settings. You have to toggle it on. And when you convert to workflow mode, if you haven't done it yet, you cannot revert it back. So I usually recommend going through, making sure things are set up in the classic configuration as much as possible, like the reminders we talked about. And the shareable URL is the other one that I usually recommend setting up. And then convert over to workflow mode, and don't be afraid of it. Okay. It's here to give you flexibility, to give you optimization and customization. Okay. And it is color coded here a bit. So, what we're focusing on for today are these green ones. And the green are time based triggers. So, these are all the triggers. And when you open up a trigger, it gives you actions. So the trigger is at 60 minutes before the start of an appointment. And then when we open up this trigger, we can see the actions that I have put in play here, right? So we have send an email to the client and any invited guests, right? So if they invited some guests to it, using the scheduled meeting reminder template. So here's a custom template that I built out that reminds them they have an upcoming meeting. And I have timed this to 1 hour before. So you can do it the day before, depending on if it's an on site, maybe you do one the day before and then you do one 2 hours before, right? So they get the heads up, you get enough notice if they need to make a change. Um, and then I highly recommend adding an additional internal note. I like to have internal notes on all the actions where we are communicating with the customer or changes are taking place with the ticket because it keeps an audit trail of exactly what's going on in the internal notes of your ticket where it's really clear to see whose responsibility was it at this step, right? And so this one is saying, and there's the variables. You can see it highlighting. So we're automatically pulling this information. So client name was sent a meeting reminder and to this email address. And that's what I like to put. So I can say, oh, it was sent to this email address, right? If they say I've never received it, that timing is off. It's 1 hour. But then we have this, here's the appointment start time, right? So I've put in the important information saying, hey, we've reminded them. And it's put in as an internal note here. Okay. Highly recommend internal notes on these different triggers. Okay. So that's reminding them of an upcoming meeting. And then when we scroll down, we see these other three time-based triggers here. So these top two are the same, just different timing. One's at 24 hours and one's at day 2. These are the reminder templates, and these are reminding the customer that they still need to schedule their meeting, okay? So they haven't scheduled, this one right here is great to have. Skip all actions in this trigger when the associated ticket is closed. So if the ticket is manually closed by the technician because they were able to fix it real fast, they don't need the meeting anymore, it's not going to keep sending these emails reminding the customer that they need to schedule. And that's, if they forgot to cancel the scheduling request, right? So that kind of gives you some protection there from bugging them if it's no longer needed. But if it is needed, we want to send them an email. And this is using the default. And then here again, another internal note with the variables saying we sent them a reminder email that they still need to schedule. And we've used, their name, the email address, and who it's scheduled with, right? And so we just duplicate that again here to happen at day 2. And then on day 4, we close this up here. On day 4, we have a trigger that's, again, using this skip all actions if the ticket is closed. It's a good one to have in there. And then we have send an email to the client using last reminder pre-closure template. This is a custom template, okay? So you can go in, build out a custom one that the tone is different, the intensity is however you want to do it, okay? And then we're going to update the service ticket to no response status. So that's the no response status that you had set up under preset statuses. And then again, adding an internal note saying, we've sent them a final reminder email to this email address and the ticket status has been updated to no response, okay? And then you can just have the rest of the automation go in your PSA. But here is, what I would say, if you need somewhere to start from and you just need a template to kick off and get your feet wet, there is a great template for you to start with, okay? And to really get that foundation and then adjust it as you need, right? If you need to make adjustments, as you see, maybe you need to be a little more aggressive. Maybe you need to throw a third reminder in here that's, 4 hours after or 2 hours after. You can do that, right? Um, that in this workflow mode, you can send as many as you would want. Andrew, you have anything here?
I think mostly just a reminder if you don't have your custom domain set up, or you have the domain set up so the
Mm,
emails are coming from you. A lot of these emails, when they're being sent out, we want to make sure that they're showing up as genuine to your customers, or you might have them, whitelisted on there. So just make sure you have those custom domain set up so the emails are coming from you and not from TimeZest. Because if the emails aren't making it to them, none of this is going to be helpful for you. So just a friendly reminder to make sure you have those domains set up and those emails are making it.
fantastic. See, this is why I bring him on here. Fantastic. He's got some good insight there. Um, so I wanted to give you just some examples here, that, little cookie cutter templates. If this is new, if you haven't really explored this at all, feel free to screenshot these and kind of think through them. But it just gives you something to think about, right? So for remote support, again, we have the 1 hour before session. You might even do it 30 minutes before. Rescheduling, 30 minutes. I think even 15 minutes before might be good for remote support. Feel free to tighten that down if you want. But doing a multiple hour before, for the cancellation minimum notice on a remote support will probably hinder you more than help you. So for that one, I would keep it tighter. Minimum notice, I typically see somewhere in the 30-minute range. Sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's 15 minutes. So 30 minutes is probably about standard. So these are just going off of, years of conversations with people, and watching them set these up. So here's one template for you. Um, On-site visit. Again, we want more notice. They want more notice. We need more time to plan and things like that. Unless, of course, the world is on fire, then priorities come and play, right? Above everything else. But if this is a non-urgent, um, then these are a template for you to kind of look at, um, establishing within your appointment type. Okay, so we can see no response window. Maybe you want to wait a few days. You might even want to push that. It might be 4 days and then escalate to a dispatcher to call them and say, hey, we're trying to get this on the books. Let us know, right? Okay.
And I think importantly too, for even on-site calls, you can set up availability on a per appointment basis
Mhm.
as well. So that's also something that you can take into account, saying, "Hey, we only want to have these appointments be scheduled in the morning, in the afternoon, Mondays and Tuesdays." These are all things that you can control to make sure that you can set up that appointment type specifically for that appointment.
Absolutely. Yeah. And using your team scheduling, right? You can put all your onset types on there and you can use round robin or maximum availability. So, if you want to do round robin, you can do that. And then another thing for on-sites actually that can be valuable is with the buffers, having different um, on-site appointments for different kind of territories per se. So if you have ones where it's closer to the shop, maybe the buffers are a tighter, maybe they're 30 minutes, right? But if you have customers who are further away, then you would have those buffer times and you would want to write the buffer times to the calendars for on-sites, so that travel time is secured. You can have a separate appointment type with longer buffer times to support maybe customers that are farther from the shop. So those are things to kind of keep in mind as well for on-site specifically. Now, QBRs are like a strategic call where you want to have time to prepare yourself, to have all the metrics, to have all the things, maybe extending this out. Minimum notice, I would say 5 days is like the bare minimum. I have seen this usually 30 days. but you think about how fast do you want to be able to throw together a QBR and be well prepared, right? So, how fast can you work, right? With everything else going on. So think about that, right? And there is some documentation on the Help Center about automating QBRs, and kind of helping with that as well. So I believe that's under the tips, tricks, and tutorials section. So you can, poke away in there and find some great articles just on scheduling QBRs and how TimeZest can help you there. Okay. Um, Anything else before we move on, Andrew? Any nuggets? You have lots of valuable nuggets.
Yeah, I think with the QBRs that you were mentioning, I think that's a great one to also just quickly check your availability, because sometimes you might set it up to where they're an hour to 2 hours. If you have lunches and then in there and appointments and weekly meetings that you already
Mhm.
have set in your calendar, how often do you just have 2 to 3 hours in your calendar that's open, depending on the week or month that you have? So just always be cognizant of when you create those buffers and appointment type durations, that you can just quickly just throw it in, in your browser and check and see what is showing availability, to make sure that those long windows that you have set up are actually going to be able to be scheduled for your end user.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice. We're going to go through, we're almost done here. If you have questions or things you want us to talk about, please start putting those in the comments now while we go through the next little bit here. So we can start answering those at the end and have enough time to get you out on time. Okay. So, key metrics. So, I look at these as like the bare minimum. This is where I want you at in the first like 60 days, 30 to 60 days. From there, you should be climbing. And if I could shrink that down, I would. But by 30 days, I like to see you at 65% completion rate. And your per member usage, which this is how many scheduling requests per month your techs are sending out, per active license, right? So I like to see 10 per active license per month as your starting per member usage. And so you can kind of keep an eye on this just by seeing, like, under the TimeZest dashboard, how many, just scan how many did Bob send out last month? How many didn't send out last week? And if you want to talk through these, I am able to have a call with you. We can do a system review. Andrew can do them as well. And we can give you your exact metrics. What's your ROI looking like right now? What is your completion rate? What's your per member usage, right? Now, the no response rate, we don't track this, but you can track this with your PSA. You can see how many no response ticket statuses are flipping. If you use something like Bright Gauge or some other dashboard to track metrics, you can do that as well, which is another great reason to have separate ticket statuses for TimeZest, because it makes it easier to track things like that,
Check.
right? But make some of these adjustments, be intentional about it, and then see if this starts getting, you start seeing more that are actually being scheduled than just sitting there, turning into science experiments right in the back of the fridge. So, the QR code at the top goes to a document about the TimeZest dashboard. If you've probably seen it, but it's a good thing to kind of like actually take a moment and look at it, because you can download a file there. You can to work in Excel and do your magic, and see what you want to see. You can also troubleshoot scheduling requests. We give you the audit trail that our support guys have, right? So you can go in there and see exactly what they can see, on the audit trail of the scheduling request. And then you can see this completion rate versus open rate there as well. So something kind of, to give you a little bit of information there. And if you have any questions or topics you want us to go over, go ahead and put those in the comment section. Here's what I'm challenging you to do. Okay.
Homework.
So, huh?
Homework.
Homework.
You always say, "I'm sending you home with some homework."
I was a teacher in a previous life, okay? And now I just teach TimeZest. So here's your homework, and go to the help center, all right? Schedule a system review if you haven't had one in the last 6 months or a year. No, okay, yes, but here, configure 2 reminders to schedule on every appointment type. Go ahead, screenshot this. You can do it. Always have a no response action. Okay. I see a lot of people leaving this blank and then nothing happens, right? So it's just aging out there. Match your no response window to the urgency of the ticket type, right? So what's the appointment type? What's the ticket type? What do we need here, right? Match these reminders to go with what you're trying to accomplish. And use appointment reminders to reduce no shows, and then check your completion rate to catch underperforming appointment types. So if you're seeing that this, not just appointment types, but like Andrew mentioned, if you don't have your custom email domain set up, they might not be getting them as much, or they might not be trusting them as much, right? So check that completion rate, make some little adjustments, see if it can start growing. If you're like, wow, we've done all these things and it's still not growing, schedule some time with us. I'd love to talk through it and see what's going on. It might be, they're using the generate URL button more. And so that automation isn't triggering. And I can kind of scan and see what's going on with you and have a conversation about it. Okay. Anything here, Andrew? Do you want to add to my homework at all?
I'm usually the one that doesn't like doing a ton of homework, so I'll keep it limited for them to not have to worry too much. But I think, like you said, hey, jump on a call with us. It's one of my favorite things we get to do is just go through your
Yeah,
account, see what we can help, and be able to just kind of steer you in the right direction, and even just learn about your processes and fun things that you guys are currently doing, to get engagement from your customers. So we're always happy to jump on and even just discuss, time
ab-
zest or even just how you as an MSP are using it.
absolutely. And you said that, and you know what? My heart sank a little bit because there is an article, and he knows which one as soon as I say this, that I share every time I talk to anybody, and it's how MSPs use TimeZest. And I did not put that on here. So go
Can't
on the
believe
help
it.
center. I am shocked. I am shocked with myself.
Yeah.
That one is fantastic. As a team, we have been collecting use cases from our customers and our own industry knowledge and putting it into that article for 6, 7 years now.
Yeah.
There is some gold hidden in there. If you have not looked at it in the last year, go look in it again, okay? But at the top right-hand corner is the feature request page. That is another valuable place for you um, as our customer base because we partner with you guys in building out TimeZest. There's a lot of big brains over here, but we know that we cannot think of every idea that you guys have, and your input is invaluable. So please go on there. It is the best place to log these. I always say, and Andrew's probably gonna laugh at me. He's heard me say this stuff, you guys, like 500 times, but it's not. It's not a black hole where good ideas would go to die. We actually do have our product manager living and breathing in there, pulling ideas out and building out what we're going to do next from there. And he will reach out to you if he needs further information, and I'll do an interview on your topic. Okay. So we see you guys as a key piece in the future of TimeZest. Okay. So with that said, I haven't seen any questions come through. Uh, are you seeing anything, Andrew? Am I just looking the wrong spot? I think I'm going.
Nope.
Yep. Nothing. You guys are low need this time. So we're at 1 hour. So we're going to
Yeah.
say goodbye and thank you. And we'll see you next month.
Yeah, hope to be there, and thanks for making it. And thanks so much, Joe. You always have super valuable information to provide, and hope to jump on with any of you on a call here shortly.
Absolutely. We look forward to it. Thanks for joining, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the week. We'll talk to you soon.